We are now in video number 27. Now I think this is already video number 28, if I remember correctly. Yes, this is video number 28, and for this video we will be demonstrating I will be demonstrating how to create a description for pie charts. So we're still in academic task 1 writing, and what I've chosen, as I discussed in the last video, is this really very creative pie chart that shows global GDP figures as well as the contribution of particular regions to global GDP and countries to global GDP. So the regions are actually color coded, and as promised, what I'll be doing is I will be demonstrating how to describe all of these myriad data. Pie charts actually always indicate figures of 100%, and we can now assume that these percentages, if we add them up together, that will total 100%, since the information was presented in a pie chart. We don't really need to add up all these figures. We're kind of sure of that. There are certain exceptions to that. There are certain pie charts which actually have totals that are not at 100%, but if that would be the case, then there would be some sort of description somewhere around the pie chart that would clarify the total figures. But since there's none such description, then we can now assume that these figures are surely at 100%. And so these figures were extracted from a web page that I saw, and that's the web page over there, howmuch.net. And then in turn, the web page extracted the data from World Bank sources. Okay, so we're gonna be mentioning that in the introductory paragraph. And so here goes the description. This is the introduction. So based on information extracted from the World Bank and presented accordingly in a web page, the pie chart above reveals figures pertaining to global GDP in 2017. So this is from 2017, so we will need to use past tense for this particular description, and then as well as the individual contribution of particular regions and countries. Alright, that's our introductory statement. We can now proceed with the overview. In totality, it is apparent that the North America contributed most to world GDP, with the notable outputs of the United States, and then followed in descending order by Asia, attributed largely to the figures from China. China is the world's second biggest economy, and third will be Europe. There, so that's enough for the overview statement. So as we discussed in the previous video, out of all these countries, we will only be mentioning for the Americas, United States and Canada, and then for Asia we will be mentioning China, and then Japan and India. The rest we can just choose to ignore. And for the European Union, we will highlight 4 countries. So Germany is the biggest has the biggest GDP for the EU, followed by United Kingdom and France, which have very close figures, and Italy at 4th. And then the rest of the figures we will just ignore. And probably we will mention other countries as contributing 7.45%, but the rest of the regions, like this is South America over here, that's Oceania over there, and this is Africa. We can just choose to ignore all of these. This is the Middle East, Saudi Arabia over there, Israel, UAE, Iran. You can just choose to ignore these figures since we do not have time and space for them. So let's proceed by describing the Americas first. As can be seen, world GDP is largely extracted from the outputs of North America. There, with the United States, there, over there, we'll highlight the 19.39 trillion. Wait, we'll need to use the past tense for this. Having had the largest output at nearly 20 trillion dollars. Okay, what a rich country that is, representing nearly a quarter. So that's the 25% of total GDP worldwide. And let's mention Canada in passing. Canada is at a distant second at only 2% of world GDP, or 1.65 trillion. And that's the end of it for the Americas. And then we'll now proceed to Asia. Asia, on the other hand, represented. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the tenses. Canada was at the distant second. Asia, on the other hand, represented the region with the second largest GDP, thanks in large part to the output of China, there at 12.24 trillion. At 12.24 trillion, or roughly 15% of global GDP. Japan is, let's group Japan and India together. No, let's mention Japan separately. Japan is at a distant second, there at nearly 5 trillion. At nearly 5 trillion, representing making up 6% of world GDP. These three countries already make up a huge chunk of global GDP, while Russia rounds off the top three in Asia. I'm sorry, I should have said India. So India rounds off the top three in Asia at a mere 3.27%. There. And then let's now segue to Europe. As you can see, we're already running at a lot of words, so that kind of justifies. We've already exceeded the word count of 183 words, so we should just make this as short as we possibly can. The European nations altogether account for the third biggest contributor, with Germany topping off at figures of nearly $4 trillion. Or almost at 5% of world GDP. Let's group the United Kingdom and France together. The UK and France have approximate outputs at around $2 trillion, or 3%, or at 3% there, while Italy is nearly at 2.5%. Okay, nearly at 2.5%, or $1.93 trillion there. And finally, we will just highlight the other regions, the other, like just this figure. Let's have a separate paragraph for that. Other regions contributed relatively less, with the rest of the countries grouped together, combining 7.45% of total world GDP. Okay, this is a tough pie chart. Admittedly, I had difficulty writing this one compared to the other pie charts. Let's see how many words that total. This is already at over here. That's over 250 words already. There's so much information. The cluster is really tough. So I'm just gonna group the paragraphs correctly so that you can see it all in under one screen. There, that's the second body paragraph. I mean the first body paragraph. And this is the second body paragraph over here. And then finally this paragraph containing describing the relatively low insignificant figures for other countries. Okay, there, that's good enough at least for a band 7. I'm sure it's gonna score higher than a band 7, but given enough time, maybe we could improve it further, particularly in some of the wordings, as I do realize that there are a lot of the words that have come out repetitively, but it's good enough. It's good enough. It's gonna score, by my estimate, at least it's gonna be a 7.5. Okay guys, so again, take a good look at this pie chart. Very informative pie chart, kind of gives us an idea of how the world works right now. So the world is really driven by the biggest economy, the biggest country, the United States, and the challenge posed by China. And then unfortunately, the US has its allies in the European region as well as in Asia itself. Okay, so if there are any questions, then do just feel free to posit your questions in the comment boxes below, and don't forget to click subscribe. And for the next video, video number 29, it will still be in academic task 1 writing, but this time we will be discussing those tricky multiple graphs and how do we make sense of a number of graphs, how do we organize them, how do we spot the overview, etc. all that jazz. So I'll see you in video 29, guys. Thanks and goodbye.